Welcome to our Boots to Bytes series. In this exciting series, Sam Chamberlain delves into the inspiring journey of Lindsay Thorburn, who has successfully made the transition from the military to the dynamic world of cybersecurity. Enjoy the episode.
Hey, Lindsay, thanks for taking the time to do this talk with me. Really do appreciate it. Firstly, why don't you start with telling me a bit about yourself, your background, and how you found the transition from the military into cybersecurity?
Yeah, Sam, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I guess a bit about me then. So from a really early age, I knew I wanted to join the army, and there's some really sort of like iconic images of me as a child that sit with the family in sort of like combat uniform. I don't know what it was, but I just kind of wanted to join. I joined the Royal Signals. I started my life there as a communication systems engineer. And I worked up through the ranks over about 24 years through formative signals, where I professionalised and got a degree, and then into commissioned as an officer, they call it technical officer of telecommunications, but largely just means I just have more to do. So throughout my career, I was kind of involved in all sorts of security, as you can imagine, being in the army. When it came to the communications side, much of it to start with was around designing and developing, and as I got towards the back end of my career, and after commissioning, I was a lot more in interoperability and designing secure networks across multinational organisations, so like Five Eyes and NATO, and then the very latter part was in Army headquarters, where I was responsible for all of our cyber risk management, incident response, which was a big part, and lots of vulnerability management. I guess that's a real quick sort of potted history of me.
Okay, and then that's your military career. When did you make the decision to get out and move to Civvy Street?
I guess I knew it was always going to come, and which is one of the benefits. We all got this time we've got to leave, and we're probably not going to accrue enough, passive income and when we're 55 to not have to have a second job or a second career. So I kind of always knew it was coming, and I'd been prepping for a while. I guess I really knew maybe about 2 years into commissioning. I kind of knew, and I was probably about the 19, 20, maybe 20 year point by then. I kind of knew it was coming. It was a combination of a couple of things. It was known because it's commissioned early. I knew that I was going to have to do about 5 turns of the handle as an SO2 if I picked up, and it wasn't too appealing for me. And I guess just my direction and my needs and my wants changed ever so slightly. And I guess as you get towards that 22-year point in your career, your military career, where you have accrued the pension, the way I've always explained it is, if you're at your sort of 15-year point and you're playing poker, you've got a 2 and a 7 in your hand. You don't necessarily have a strong set of cards, because you're kind of pension trapped. When you get to the 22-year point, though, you're almost sitting with pocket aces. You make the calls, you decide when's good to leave, and you set the conditions for you to go. And I guess, it was maybe sort of 2 or 3 years into my commissioning that I decided that I was getting into the security side of networking and heavily into cybersecurity elements. And that for me was really appealing. I was enjoying the job so much that I didn't want to leave the field. I didn't want to be pushed to do a job that maybe didn't necessarily fit where I wanted to be professionally. So I guess that was the moment that I realized.
Okay, that makes sense. Taking charge of your own destiny, I suppose. And how did you find the transition? How did you go about it? What did you go through?
So good question. Everybody finds it a bit different, I expect. I was really fortunate on my formative signals course, which was about 10 years into my career. And I can't remember who it was, but they were much wiser than I was. They said that this was the start of their transition out of the military. And they'd done about 12 years at the time. But that really stuck with me. The fact that they said that this was the beginning of the end for them, and they were from this point forward building a path, taking opportunities as they came. And I guess because I've taken that forward and I've always looked for opportunities, my transition was relatively easy in comparison to some people's I'd expect. Mm-hmm. I jumped on what courses were available. I always pushed myself forward for things so that I was developing myself professionally, and not just in technical skills, but also in different things like change management and being involved with different types of groups. I also started to get involved with things outside of the military as well. So when I was up in Telford and working in headquarters, I got involved with TEDx, which is sort of like I don't know if you've heard of the TED Talks and things. I got involved with them and I became the executive director of TEDx Telford. So that was just pushing my profile out there a little bit more from a civilian perspective and showing that actually I feel like it can integrate quite well with different groups, and also allowed me to expose myself a little bit more on platforms like LinkedIn, where I hadn't necessarily made that much of a noise. That also helped when it came to and another sort of kind of analogy I use is, if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, did it make a sound? Well, this leads to LinkedIn, and this is something that I really want to make sure we get out there, is that if I started on LinkedIn the day that I wanted to leave and I put a post out that said, hey, I'm getting out of the military, I'm really interested in jobs in, project management or cybersecurity or whatever, if there's no network there to hear it, then it's not making a noise, and you're not getting the blast radius, to use a terrible military term, not getting the blast radius you might expect. So building your network early was key for me, and it was something that I'm very thankful that I managed to get one do.
Yeah, absolutely. Building that network as soon as you possibly can, as early as you possibly can, is crucially important. And it's something I advise people as soon as they start thinking, oh, I want to get out. They've got a year. They've got a year since they've signed off to start doing it. Straight away, get a LinkedIn profile up. Straight away, start networking with people, building connections with people, just speaking to them, asking for advice, getting to know them, getting their name and face out there. Because then, like you said, when it does come to crunch time and they're putting that CV in, hopefully it'll be a friendlier face that looks like someone that already knows who they are, already recognizes them.
Absolutely. That's I think that's one of the key things there, Sam, that you bring out, is leveraging your own network, the ability to you've built a network over your period in the military, be it 4 years or 24 or 34 years. Now is the time to sort of like cash in some of that equity that you've bought with the people you've worked with. Reach out there. That you'd be surprised at how much veterans just want to help veterans. It's heartwarming to see actually the amount of support the people get there, and really good networks, particularly things like the Gen Dit network and different places like that, where veterans and service leavers and people who've been out for a few years kind of go and build a network and start pushing jobs and pieces around. It's really good to see the community come together and support people.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting you mentioned the Gen Dit network. I think that's how you and I first got in contact with each other as well. What might be handy for people watching this is just a bit of an overview of your post-military career, what you've been doing with yourself as a cybersecurity professional in Civvy Street, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problems. So I got out it was probably only about 10 months ago now, and I started with a company called CGI, probably one of the biggest consultancies that a lot of people have never heard of, if you've not been working in sort of the IT and service provision area. I worked and actually used some of my knowledge, some of my equity that the company bought me for, probably was back into the military. So I was ended up down in Caution working on Mod Cloud product, being the security manager for that, as it was being brought into service under Secure by Design method. So yeah, that was initially it. I spent 6 months there, and this is I guess this is something that's really key to draw as part of the discussion as well, is I spent the 6 months there, but another opportunity came my way. It was put on my desk, and at the time I felt like someone's shoved a stick in the spokes of my plan here, because I was fully invested in being with CGI for quite a while. But the opportunity was really good. Fantastic to build and deliver products as part of a team with CDS Defence and Security, which is where I work now as the Risk and Governance Practice Lead. That opportunity came to me out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it, but here's the thing, when you get an assignment from APC Glasgow or wherever your assignment office is, that's it. You pretty much say, once you're there for a couple of years, and by and large you don't have much chance to sit and move around. You're in that job for 2 years, and that's you. When you're out in Civvy Street, you take the opportunities, you make the calls, and it's up to you as and when you decide to shift and move. Now, you might stay somewhere for 10, 15, 20 years, which is fantastic and be really good. Equally, if something different comes along and you want to pursue it, it's on your head. You make the calls, and I think that was really good for me to understand. So my role now, I got a great team. We deliver again back into predominantly sort of mod and secure government environments at the whole remit of governance, risk and compliance product sets. So risk assessments, supply chain, understanding of your supply chain threats, maturity assessments, the whole gamut.
Interesting. Thank you for that. I like what you're saying about taking opportunities and that sort of empowerment to take ownership of your own career. You're not stuck somewhere for 2 years. If something great comes along, you're free to take it. Equally, if you're in a good place and you want to stay for 5, 6, 7 years, you're free to do so. You've got that ownership of your own career progression and of your own destiny. Again, as you
Absolutely.
said earlier. Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing that. It sounds like you were quite well prepared for the transition. You really started it fairly early, even if it wasn't a conscious choice. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently, do you think?
So I like I say, I probably had a really good sort of plan in place as I was moving out. What I would maybe do differently is I probably wasn't as quick to jump on CTP once I'd done the button clicks and got myself to that. Probably wasn't as quick to jump on that as I could or should have been. And the reason I think that's important is there's some courses in there, particularly if you go into the cybersecurity route, that are usually quite highly subscribed. So there's a network plus an security plus sort of package, and that's usually booked out 6-ish months in advance, or it certainly was when I was looking. So not that I was going down those courses, but just to see how heavily subscribed they were was good. If you're planning to do a cybersecurity route, I would maybe make sure that you jump on there a bit quicker. The second thing, and I've already touched on it, is your network. And if you can get that started sooner and before you even decide that I'm probably going to do it this week or this month or even this year, as soon as you start building that network and just having those conversations, that's a benefit. And I really want to draw, and it's something that I posted about previously, maybe in the last week or so, is about, it's not necessarily the size of the network you've got, but the strength of that network, making strong connections which are meaningful and building relationships just rather than gathering numbers as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the post you're referring to. Rated it quite highly. Yeah, absolutely. It's about the quality of people you're connected to. Are they the right people in the right business, in the right industries? Are you having the right interactions with them, or are you just connecting with everyone that LinkedIn suggests you do? Yeah, absolutely. There's some really good tips there. Really good tips. Networking, obviously crucial, and getting yourselves on the right courses as well, I think, is key. Understanding, cyber is a big industry in itself, isn't it? There are so many different avenues in cybersecurity, so you don't have to silo yourself too early. But if there is a particular area that people want to get into, if they are very interested in penetration testing or something like that, then making sure they pick the right courses to.
Yeah, it's really good point, Sam. And something I always say is make sure you climb the right mountain. Mm-hmm. There's no point in climbing a mountain and realizing that you should have been over there somewhere instead of where you are. Not all boot camps are the same. You'll see a lot of advertisements for boot camps. They're curated slightly differently. They're tailored, therefore, for different specialisms within cybersecurity. So one provider will offer a boot camp at X cost and duration, and it might be slightly different to another one. You will not end up in the same place when it comes to knowledge. Make sure you understand which specialism you want to go into and align closely the courses and the material with the direction of travel you want to go in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And the last question from me then, Lindsay, is aimed more at employers that might be watching this and hiring managers. What value do veterans being able to bring to companies?
Yeah, lots, I would say, is the answer. I mean, you've only got to look at the number of organizations out there that have got military transition programs, places like AWS and Microsoft, JP Morgan. You know, there's quite a lot of big providers. There's also hundreds of SMEs that have got that are part of the employee recognition scheme, whether it's bronze, silver, or gold levels, and that's due to them either, you know, having ex-military people in the senior leadership team now when they've decided to invest in it, or they brought in a couple of people from you know, service leavers, and they've performed so well they thought, why don't we get on this bandwagon? What is it that we bring? Probably reliability is one of them. We're quite punctual and usually seen as quite reliable employees. We'll turn up at the right time in the right dress with the right attitude. We have bags of integrity and a really strong moral compass is probably something else. You know, if we see something that's maybe not as we would expect in the workplace, we're probably going to highlight that to be addressed. The ability to build teams, and don't underestimate the importance of recognizing strengths and weaknesses in individuals, and then using those to pull together a team to achieve business objectives. We also tend to be quite goal orientated. So if we're in the military environment, quite often under-resourced and maybe don't have all the tools that we require, but we tend to find quite unique ways to overcome those obstacles. I think the only thing I would highlight and the counter to that is we're in a different environment, you know, in Civvy Street, and maybe some of those techniques just need to be tailored to the people around you. And the last one I want to draw out then is being physically fit. Now, you might not think that sounds very important from an employer's perspective, but actually, you know, people who maintain their physical fitness tend to be a bit happier at work. They tend to be quite, you know, nice people to be around because they've got those endorphins running around in them, and they also tend to be more effective and efficient when they're in the workplace. So they're probably performing a bit more optimally for themselves.
That's it. That's actually a very interesting point. The correlation between physical and mental fitness is really quite tight. So yeah, people who do keep themselves physically active are generally going to be more mentally fit. They're going to be able to keep going when things do get a bit tougher or a bit more tiring, which, as you mentioned, resilience is a big thing that the ex-military people can bring. I also like your point about the integrity and doing the right thing on a difficult day, and just that having that attitude to just get things done, whatever resources you've got to do the job. If that's the job you've got to do, then you find a way to do it. Absolutely. Okay, Lindsay, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me and for sharing your history and your thoughts, your insights on this. I really, really do appreciate it.
No problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.